What's going on, everybody? Thank you guys so much for watching the show. Wanted to talk to you about our friends over at Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching sports. This app is really easy to use. You just pick more or less on a few player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your cash on a single lineup. Best of all, Prize Picks will give you $50 when you play your first $5 lineup. Win or lose, you'll get $50 for playing. Use the promo code PFF and download the app now. This is one of my favorite draft classes, and it's a long one. At the very top, they took offensive tackle Will Campbell at number 4 overall. Then in the second round, they got a little bit more dynamic in the running back room with Travion Henderson from Ohio State. Continued that addition of athleticism with Kyle Williams in the third. Also, Jared Wilson, the center from Georgia, in the third. Pair of fourth-round picks in Craig Woodson and Joshua Farmer. Fifth round, they got Braden Swinson, who genuinely could be the steal of the draft. I really do think that. From where he was on my board, he was picked about 100 spots later than where I had him ranked in the 40s on my big board. That's an absolute steal for talent, in my opinion. Andreas Borregales, the kicker, in the 6th. And then in the 7th round, a handful of picks. Marcus Bryant, Julian Ashby, and Kobe Minor there. The staff gave the Patriots an A. This was one of my 2 A pluses that I gave out on the NFL Stock Exchange show. It was them and the Carolina Panthers. And so very clearly, I loved what the Patriots did. And really what puts a draft class over the top, in my opinion, and what gives them that plus next to that A is when I can look at this whole offseason and see that it was a job well done, that it was a strategy that was well implemented. And with the Patriots going into this offseason with the change at head coach, bringing in Mike Vrabel and moving on from Gerard Mayo, this was the worst roster in the NFL on paper. They had a tall task ahead of them, really turning around this roster. Now, you had Drake May, so you had the most important part in hand. But it was going to take a lot of work, and they attacked defense hard in free agency with a ton of cap space to be able to do it. Got a lot of difference-making players on that defensive side of the ball. And then in the draft, I thought it was a great mix of prioritizing offensive guys, but then also not being afraid to add some defensive players a little bit later in the draft, too. So to me, this gets an A+ because not only did I love the draft haul, I thought it was an incredible compliment to what they had already done in the offseason. And this Patriots team already looks light years better on paper than what it was last season.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we could look back 3 years from now and go, okay, why are the Patriots good? It would be because of this draft class and how they surrounded Drake May with talent in this draft class. You want a starting left tackle? You got it in Will Campbell. Travion Henderson brings an element of speed that was not in their backfield last year. Kyle Williams brings an element of speed that was not in their receiving core last year. I think one of the themes with New England's offense outside of, well, they just couldn't block anybody was they had no speed whatsoever. Drake May is a vertical passer. You want to be able to make explosive plays in the passing game. Obviously, Henderson can do it as a runner and as a receiver. Williams is a really good deep threat. And then Jared Wilson, look, I see no reason, even as a third-round pick, that he couldn't compete with Garrett Bradbury for the starting center job. I know starting 2 rookies on the offensive line is always risky, but I think he's talented enough to do so. We haven't seen much from Bradbury in Minnesota that suggests, okay, this guy should be a slam dunk fit to start, right away in New England. So I think those first 4 players are going to be the real key here for this team. Obviously, you're trying to surround Drake May with talent. We were wondering what the strategy was when they didn't do it much in free agency, but I think you really have a situation here where now they have enough talent, they have enough speed. Obviously, adding Stephon Diggs as well. You still have some other guys who were pretty good last year, Pop Douglas, some veteran tight ends. I think this is a team you could envision if this draft hits pretty soon here. You could envision them being in second place in this division. They've added a ton of talent. Miami, it seems like, is only losing talent little by little every year. I don't know if their record would be enough to get them into wild card consideration, and the AFC is still absolutely loaded, but I could see them finishing this year in second place, especially if this draft class develops right.
I agree with you 100%. I think that it's the Bills' division to lose once again, but I would be picking the Patriots to finish second right now. I'm intrigued by the Jets, but just a lot of turnover there with the Jets. It's going to be a little bit of a learning curve with them. Obviously, you're getting a new quarterback in there as well. So just some different changes and philosophical views with some guys who are already on the roster with the new regime that is there. I understand that that's also the case with the Patriots, but they didn't have as much turnover as the Patriots did, and they have the quarterback still there and familiar with a lot of the players that do remain there in New England. So I would agree with you. I think that the Patriots are all of a sudden the second team to beat in that division. I agree with you. I think that it's I don't know, unlikely it feels like that they'd make a wild card spot in the AFC, but I think that they will be a much tougher out than they were the previous season. I see Will Campbell as a left tackle. I don't think they draft him at number 4 overall if they don't think that he could play left tackle, so I think he's sliding into one of those spots. I think that Jared Wilson, I agree with you, can be a starter soon. And the thing that I like a lot about Kyle Williams is I think he's going to be this team's wide receiver 2 for the long haul. Now, like, will he maybe be a wide receiver 1 for them this upcoming year? Perhaps. I still think that they would like for one of those guys who was in the building last year to be able to step up, and Jalen Polk and Jerome Baker and Pop Douglas, like you mentioned. But I think Kyle Williams is probably the long-term wide receiver 2 on this team, and they can sort of wait to make a major splash at wide receiver over the next 2 seasons as Drake May continues to develop. Had somebody in the chat, I believe it was Travis in the chat, said Swinson can't set the edge or stop the run. The thing about the Swinson pick, though, is that, yeah, okay, he's not as strong against the run, and I agree with you there. He had a 69.6 run defense grade this past season, but even as just a designated pass rusher, 22.1% pass rush win percentage this past year, 91.4% pass rushing grade against true pass sets. Even as a DPR, he's a steal in the 5th round. Like, I would have told you that even if you were only thinking about Braden Swinson as just a pass rusher, that's a 3rd-round player, in my opinion. For how well he was able to get into the backfield, get past offensive tackles, win cleanly, that to me was a top 100 pick all day long. And so to me, even if that's just what you think that he is, I still think that he could be the steal of the draft because he was drafted about a round, maybe even 2 lower than he should have been. So any thoughts on Swinson there? Again, I just have such high hopes for him. I think he's going to be great in New England.
No, I think you make the right point. Look, if you want guys to stop the run, you have Harold Landry, you have Keon White, you have Anthony Jennings, you have Kaylavon Chason. You've got a bunch of veteran guys who you can put in there to stop the run, and Braden Swinson can play 20 snaps a game as a pass rusher. You're absolutely right. In the 5th and 6th round, on day 3 really is when you're trying to find role players. I think that's an excellent role player to have.